Today's video is about the Cursorless Scope Visualizer, a new feature that was shipped in the past month that makes it a lot easier to visualize the cursorless scopes live in your editor. You may have caught the previous video where I was building the scope visualizer in one of my coding sessions, and so today you can see the result if you already caught that one. So let's see what that looks like in a simple case. Visualize command. Browse. So this is a new scope type called command, which works for the Talon file format, which we use to define voice commands. And so you can see here that it is highlighting each of the Talon commands, right? We have the command hello world, which types out hello world, do something, which sleeps and then goes left, right? So at its simplest level, the scope visualizer just shows you the scopes that are present. A couple other things to call out. One, it works with hierarchical scopes. Visualize state. Browse. So you can see that we have statement scope in Talon is hierarchical. It's nested, right? So both the top level state commands as well as the inner actions that implement the command are considered statements. So let's have a quick look at what that means in practice. Take state spun. Take state oats. Browse. So you can see by default, Cursorless is going to select whatever the smallest one is, right? That's just how it always works with Cursorless. But now you have a visual way of seeing what's happening when that happens. Post file. Browse. The next thing you should probably learn is how to turn the scope visualizer off. So for that, you just say visualize nothing. Browse. Okay, one more feature to show off of the scope visualizer is that it gives you a really easy way to see something that we call domains, which is something that we kind of have supported for a long time, but it's never really been made explicit. So let's look at a scope called name, which in Talon files is used to refer to the command, the thing you'll actually speak in a spoken form. Visualize name. Browse. So you can see here that name is like the left-hand side of the command, right? It's hello world in the spoken form hello world, or do something. It's the thing you say. And as you can see here, in addition to the purple thing that we had before, we now also have this kind of light gray highlight. And what that is the domain of that scope, which means anywhere within that gray region, if I say take name, I will get the purple, right? So I can say take name look. Browse. So that's the concept of domain. So, and domains can also be nested. So you can have like domains on top of each other. Do I have a good example of that? Paste before file. Browse. So you can see here are nested domains, right? So you can see that name from anywhere within here gives us settings, and name from anywhere within here gives us the left-hand side of one of these setting statements. So you can have nested scopes, you can have domains, and you can have nested domains. And I think these concepts would be really hard to understand, but hopefully this visualization makes them much clearer. And it's also a nice way to experiment. You can say, all right, what would happen if my cursor is on the very edge of something? What happens there, etc. Okay, last couple features to show off here is that in addition to visualizing, what we've been visualizing was called the content range of the scope. But scopes also have removal ranges. So you can visualize, if I were to say chuck scope, what that would look like. So a good example of that is token. Visualize token removal. Browse. So you can see now we're getting the removal range, right? And for the most part, it's the same as the token, but you can see here now both this one, it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see that this is a deeper red, so it's overlapping, right? So if I say chuck oats, you can see it would give me through this, including the space, and chuck harp would give me up until the oats. Chuck harp. Finally, the scope visualizer can give us what's called the iteration range of a scope. So it means when I say every scope, where it would look to find all the scopes. So let's take an example of that. Visualize state iteration. Browse. So as you can see, it's nested, right? So it means that anywhere in the file, if I say every state, then I am going to get the top level ones. Take every state oats. Browse. So you can see I got the top level statements. However, if I'm within the body here, pre each, browse. Now, if I say every state, it's going to give me the ones inside the body of this statement. Take every state. Drowse. Visualize nothing. Drowse. A bit hard to see when you have all those layers, but now you can see what I have selected is those two statements within the body of that command definition. That's pretty much all there is to know. One big caveat here is this only works for what we're calling next generation scopes. And so that's scopes which have been migrated to this newer representation, which allows us to do all sorts of powerful things that we couldn't do with our previous scope representation, like this scope visualizer, a sidebar we're going to be building, much more consistent behavior, and a whole broad grammar that allows like take every scope, blah, blah, blah. All sorts of things are built on top of this more powerful scope representation, which is quite new. So it's only been created in the past couple months. So we're still in the progress of migrate everything. Talon support, all of them are implemented as next-gen scopes because it's something we only recently supported. A lot of the other languages are still a bit of a mixture. So very soon, we're going to be shipping a feature which is a sidebar, where you can see exactly which scopes are present in the file and which ones are new. So that's going to make it much easier to know. So until then, and until we actually start really migrating them en masse, which is soon, this is like a top priority for us. But until then, it's going to be a bit hit or miss which ones you can use. So if you're watching this video in the future, well, farther in the future, then this should just work on everything. But if you're watching this pretty close to when it's filmed, it may be a bit hit or miss having the scope visualizer actually work, which I know will be frustrating, but we're hoping to migrate as soon as possible and give you a tree view so you can easily see what's supported. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. So with that, thank you so much for watching and happy coding. Record stop.